Could this potentially kill AR DPS? Right, I'm just going to be talking about DPS here. Obviously, with LMGs, there is a lot more going on. They're not as accurate, they're not as stable, they don't allow you to use things like shields with them. The suppress mechanic is obviously a thing. However, there is one thing happening within the LMG spectrum which could potentially shake up the overall DPS side of things. And for this side, I mostly mean things like raids, incursions, perhaps even countdown, where team synergy has a bit more going on with the ability to use a consistent healer or at least CC in this department. So you're not really worried about actually having to use a shield because other things are going to be of more importance, such as getting as much damage downrange as quickly as possible. And what I mean by this is, essentially, if we look at the meta at the moment, in terms of outright DPS and its performance, and just take the FAMAS as its sort of standard, the L86 and the RPK, depending on your build, can actually outperform the FAMAS, but by like 1%. This 1% isn't worth the introduction of a less stable, less accurate gun that will probably most likely suppress a lot of enemies. So despite the fact that the L86 and the RPK at the moment can out DPS the FAMAS, that 1% increase just isn't worth the headache. However, all LMGs, minus Iron Lung, are getting plus 20%. Yeah, this is actually kind of huge because now the L86 and the RPK aren't just out DPSing FAMAS. You can do whatever you want to that FAMAS, and you can put a non-damage talent on the L86 and the RPK, and the L86 and the RPK are still doing so much more. Like, it's not even funny how much more. So we're going to use our standard DPS build, 4-piece strikers, chest with Obliterate. I've left the talent empty because I'm an idiot. And then Coyote's Mask. And then when we put the weapons in, we're going to play around with the mods to get everything at 59% critical hit chance and 129% critical hit damage. Add in close range Coyotes, we get 154. That's basically it. It's the same build because they're the same attachments that you can utilize on both FAMAS, RPK, L86. It's like your standard sort of 4-mod setup on these style of weapons. This is what the build looks like on our spreadsheet. Two things of note is LMGs have 10% more headshot damage than ARs, so if your watch is at full, ARs will have 75 and LMGs will have 85. Another thing of note is, as a typical roll, ARs, well, most weapons will only be able to put 10% damage to targets out of cover on them, whereas LMGs come with a native 12. Now, I have included the changes, such as the 20% increase in base damage for the L86 and the RPK, and this is utterly ridiculous. Like, on average, the L86 is doing like 18 to 19% more, whereas the RPK is doing 17 to 18% more. Now, both of these weapons do have different pros and cons. The main one being the L86 has a 50-round mag, where the RPK has a 65-round mag. They both essentially have the same reload, and just for clarity's sake, there is now nothing that you can do to your FAMAS that will outperform either of these weapons. Nothing. It's kind of dumb how stupid these two weapons are going to be becoming, and it's kind of annoying, to be perfectly honest. Let's factor in strained. As you can see here, hopefully the critical hit damage on the FAMAS has gone up to 179, whereas the L86 is still at 154, as is the RPK. Now, you might be disillusioned into thinking this is actually going to make any form of difference. However, no, it doesn't. Yeah, this is still a pretty sizable difference. in DPS. Like, it's kind of funny. In fact, the only way in which you're able really to compete with the L86 and the RPK now in terms of like high-end standard weapons is going to be like the FAMAS with a usable source of flatline. Hope you can see there in AMP 0.15. This just about brings it even, but even then, the L86 and the RPK are still using. But what we haven't factored in here is how we're actually going to go about getting the FAMAS with a efficient use of flatline. Sure, it can be done, but typically not in solo. This is more going to be like a team setup sort of thing. So yeah, the L86 and the RPK are going to be absolutely stupid when it comes to overall sort of DPS within the high-end setups. They beat Elmo, they beat the new and improved Eagle Bearer. They basically, if it's an AR, they beat it. If it's an LMG, apart from Iron Lung, they beat it. Like, they're ridiculous now. But this is kind of like to a point of where it's not funny. And due to the high amount of DPS that you can get here, as you can see, I've got fast hands on my L86, and it's still going to do so much more DPS, both burst and sustained, than so many other options. They're just unreal. And all I'm really compromising with this style of setup is just my ability to use a shield, which isn't exactly the worst thing going. Now, obviously, they do have drawbacks. Like I said, like their accuracy is a little bit twitchy. Stability-wise, they definitely have a lot more of a kick. However, just generally speaking, for the content that we have in the game, like it's overtuned to hell. Like, I know a lot of people are going to go, oh crap, I'm going to need to farm myself some L86s and RPKs now. But like, it's kind of just like dull. Like, when you're not shooting something or something's being a bit of a ball ache, if you play a little bit tactically, you'd be like, yeah, I'll just suppress you, and then I'll just get the guy with the turret or whatever. If you kind of use it a bit tactically, you can make use of the suppress, but overall the suppress is still just a little bit wafty. But in terms of just like general performance, it's beating everything. It's so not even funny. It's unreal how not funny it is. Now, of course, I'm not saying here that everyone should stop using ARs and start using LMGs. I'm just saying, like, in terms of what we could now use in terms of overall performance, there are going to be some LMGs, namely the RPK and L86, that could potentially be worthwhile depending on your playstyle. And the reason for this is quite simply, I'm still able to kill things. Obviously, this is not in the PTS, this is live server. I'm still able to kill things pretty quickly, cleanly, and accurately before they get suppressed. And even when they do get suppressed, I'm still able to get some damage in to either knock them out or just kill them while they're suppressed. This is at plus 10 expertise as well, this L86. I've got another 10 to go, which I'm not going to do because the expertise system, the cost of it is getting changed. But this is essentially, when this comes out, is the level of DPS that you could do with an expertise L86 is unreal, because you could potentially negate the suppressed because you'll kill things before they have a chance to get suppressed. Like, hilariously so. Hilariously so. It's going to be so much damage that we just don't need. So yeah, the L86 and the RPK are going to be absolutely busted. I still need to do some additional testing, but I can't until, if this does happen, with the new reliable, because 30% weapon handling, this could even be even better, because one of the big problems that LMGs have, other than suppressed, is just accuracy and stability. 30% weapon handling mostly solves that. So the RPK might actually just become the new sort of standard. If not, it'll be the L86 or the RPK with fast hands. And that is basically going to be your standard AR. It's not AR, well, they are actually ARs in real life, but in game, apparently the devs don't know what they're talking about. So yeah, this is it. The end of an era, potentially. Have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health.